Amen.
Now, very shortly, 7, 8 minutes or so. With your permission, this week's Torah reading deals with cities of refuge. Adam Hashem Moshe Lemar. The Almighty Rebbeinu spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he told him, Daber Bnei Yisrael v'mat aleihem, you should instruct the Klal Yisrael, instruct your flock, ki atem oivrim es hayardein, Artz Oknoah, and you're going to enter, you're going to cross the Jordan, and you're going to cross over and into Eretz Yisrael. V'krisam lachem Arei Miklat, and you shall provide cities of refuge. Cities of refuge for someone who committed unintentional homicide, so he has where to find a haven, a refuge, fleeing from the next of kin, from the Goyal Adam. I was walking in the street some time ago, and I saw a gentleman who was beaten rather badly. He was bleeding, and I ran over to him, I picked him up. I said, my goodness, whatever happened, you come quickly, let me take you home. He said, no, that's where I'm coming from. So the cities of refuge were made for those that were unintentional homicide. And the Sheish Arei Miklat Lachem, 6 cities of refuge were set aside. Where were they set aside? They were set aside, the land was a portion of the 12 tribes. Each one had their apportionment, their Yerusha, their inheritance. It was set aside, these cities of refuge were set aside in the tribe Shevet Levi of the Levim. Shevet Levi were these scholars, the Talmidei Chachamim, of the leaders, masters of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish nation. For what reason? Why did the Almighty, why instruct Moshe Rabbeinu that those that committed unintentional homicide should find refuge? Cities of refuge should be by the Levim. Why not by any of the other 11 tribes? The Torah, the Rebbeinu Islam, they looked at someone who straight off the path, the straight path. Someone who committed a crime. It was because of his lack of being exposed to the proper environment. Not like the judicial systems throughout the civilized world, where someone, a criminal, so they put him in jail together with other criminals. And whatever he didn't to his trade, whatever he was missing to be a finished, a perfected criminal, they're in jail, then he'll pick up all the rest of the tools that he needs. We had, unfortunately, was one of our members of our congregation, a very, very special gentleman, Shmuel Quentzel. And he was murdered in cold blood. He was coming out of his car in front of his house, and 2 thugs shot him as he was walking from his car. He parked in his driveway, walking from his car to his house. He was shot in cold blood. The murder was unsolved for over 28 years, I believe. There's a plaque here for him. For over 28 years, his murder was unsolved. How did they? And they finally did. They did track down the criminals. The difficulty was, why couldn't they find them? Because the 2 criminals both were sitting in jail already for something else. They couldn't find them anywhere. So, with forensic advancement, the techniques and forensic techniques, when the murder took place in 1980, with cigarette butts and things like that, they weren't able, with chemical analysis and laboratories, they weren't able to determine a type of blood and whatever they need. I'm just repeating what I heard. So they stored it away, preserved it, and then finally, about a year and a half ago, they put it through the latest technological developments, and they found a name of a criminal that had, with his fingerprints, with his type of blood, and found one was sitting in one prison in Arkansas, and one was sitting in a prison somewhere else. But more than that, they didn't have. They wanted more conclusive evidence. So they took and put both of them in the same cell, in the same prison. And they wired the cell. And both of them began talking over old times and trading techniques and how they committed this crime and that crime, and all of this was wired, taped. And they came out with it, that on that day they took and murdered this unfortunate, innocent person. So by putting a criminal into a regular prison, regular jail with other criminals, it in no way does it rehabilitate him, and that's not the therapy for him. If anything, it will make him much worse than he was before. When he comes out, he'll be even more perfected and finished criminal than he was before. More tzich, more batchev. So I understood that a criminal is because of lack of exposure to the right environment. They put him into the finest environment possible. They put him into Shevet Levi, between Talmid and Chachamim, or in Miklat in the Shevet Levi. And there, with his spiritual deficiency, it'll grow on him, and he'll come out, he'll be ready for society like a real human being. Environment. There's nothing as valuable as environment. But there was, finished with a very beautiful story. There was a gentleman who used to come every night to the house of study, to the Besmedrish. And in the Besmedrish, there was lectures, shiurim, there were Parshas in Torah, chavrusis, and all different, some that sat by a Gemara, by a Chumash, sat and studied by shlit by himself. He didn't fit into any of these categories. As soon as he would arrive in the Besmedrish at night, he would find himself a comfortable chair and go right to sleep, and 2 hours later he would leave. He looked too nicely dressed to be homeless, and it was a skullcracker. What in the world is he doing here? But if trouble he's not making, let him sit. Finally, somebody's curiosity got the best of him, and he approached him. And he said to him, he said, you know, you mean very well. You'd love to participate in one of the shiurim, one of the lectures, but the day of business and work drains you. You do yourself greater service by resting up a day or two, and then you'll be refreshed. Why do you punish yourself night after night? He said, I'll tell you why. He said, unfortunately, he said, I never had a yeshiva education. And I have children, boys and girls, go to yeshiva Beis Yaakov. They come home at night, and they're looking to me to help them with their homework. I can't, I'm embarrassed, I can't. What can I do? I can take out a pipe and take out a newspaper, put on slippers, put my feet on a couch, and I'll watch television, watch the newspaper. What kind of environment am I creating for my children? So I tell them that I must go to the Besmedrish house of study. I have their Parshas in Torah that I'm going to study with. So they look at me and they say, Father, after a full day of being so exhausted, he forced himself to go to a house of study to learn. Could you imagine what kind of environment that creates? Kalani ben Akash Oimer, what's our Kalifon of Zaki Israel, the Tikka Chibra of Torah Mitzvah, Shedem Radhanei Chavis Matzifoi, Yagul.